One. Hello, guys. I'm Shane Davis, 20-year comic book veteran. I'm here with Yanzi Lin, and today is the day we are bringing you news of the comic book industry on superhero fatigue. Some people are finally coming to terms with something I've been saying for a while, but before we get into it, please look down below, hit like, subscribe, ring the bell for notification. Please help this channel out. Leave us a comment below, share the video, of course. Now, this is coming from ICV2. You want to tell everybody what it's about, Yanzi?
Well, ICV2 here has an opinion piece by Rob Selkowitz here. And it looks like they're finally coming to terms with the fact that maybe not all is well in the world of DC and Marvel and superhero comics. So Rob opens up the article by saying, after a few fat years during the pandemic, it sure looks like periodic comics are deep into a cyclical downturn, both financially and creatively. So financially and creatively, somebody's about to, spill the beans, yo.
Yeah. Okay. So this is kind of like a lot of misinformation. We're going to hit a few points in this, but right off the bat, he says few fat years after the pandemic. They haven't been fat years, actually. This is a falsehood. The American comic book industry has been taking a lot of credit from YA and manga sales and trying to put out sales report that prop them up in their position, which is a failing position during a time when entertainment was flailing about.
Well, we have here recent data shows superheroes are about to lose their place as a top selling category in US comics and graphics novel. All right, so stop me if I'm wrong, but isn't pretty much the entire comic book industry in America pretty much based on superheroes? Like, where are the romance graphic novels? Where are the sci-fi fantasy ones? You want to talk about things like Sandman and all that? That's like how many decades ago? You want to talk about Walking Dead? How old is that again? So there really isn't much exactly left in the here except for what superhero stuff. So,
right. And this is the thing with the big studios and trying to get these blockbuster films. Companies like DC Comics, especially, who used to have a diverse line of books from more like science fiction like Green Lantern or Adam Strange to westerns like Jonah Hex to, even old war comics like Weird War Tales and Sergeant Rock. DC Comics in general, as a comic book company, especially more like in the 70s and 80s and 60s, whatever, used to be a very diverse comic book publisher. And then you get into things like Vertigo and stuff. There used to be a lot of diversity in content as far as comics were. It's just this big superhero movie boom made all publishers basically zone in, kill Vertigo, bring Vertigo back, kill Vertigo again, and basically funnel all the funds of the publishing arm into just superhero genre. Now, this report's going to blame everything but the fact that the comics we've been producing don't sell, and therefore there's less money to reinvest and buy new comics. And to go through this report, it's you guys can go check it out if you want. But this, they're blaming basically superhero fatigue, which I actually agree on that one point. But they're blaming the economy and they're blaming everything else. But see, manga's doing great, so it's obviously not the economy.
So on that point, you look at this supply and demand mismatch. 2022 saw a 7% increase in the number of monthly titles published by the major publishers. We were talking about American superhero comics. So they're saying, but is reader interest and buying power also increasing to match the new supply? And they talk about things like, well, people were stuck at home because of the pandemic, and now because they're not stuck at home, they're not buying comics anymore. But if that's the case, then they'll stop buying manga too, right? But it seems like manga is doing better and better every year. In fact, last year, they dominated the USA sales chart by accounting for 75% of all the sales of graphic novels. So
right. The reality is like diversity is an issue of content. But the American superhero comic industry has become super hyper focused of the sexuality of characters, and to the point of obsessing over pronouns, what they identify as, and whatever. Like becoming every character becoming bisexual, to just regular filth in the comics of like, can I write a threesome or foursome, and the writer bragging about it. Now, this type of degeneracy in the American comic book industry is actually proof that there is a superhero fatigue, because if that's your selling point and that's your angle, then you're like, yeah, I could have like Green Goblin fight Spider-Man and that'd be a big deal, but does anybody care anymore? Do we now have to observe Peter Parker's being bisexual, or do we have to come up with a different Spider-Man that's handy capable, and that's our selling point? These type of clickbait moments in comics, or throwaway, I hate to say throwaway characters, because they have like little to no research and development in these characters. They're just like a knockoff version of Batman or Spider-Man or something like that that already has popularity. Like those characters, I mean, they're kind of just thrown out there to sink or swim and be clickbait. I mean, we are at a point of clickbait marketing with these comics. And I do agree it's superhero fatigue, but blaming everything about comic sales being down on everything but the quality of comics you've been putting out is, I don't know, self sabotaging for the industry.
Mhm. So let's look at more, shifting of the blame here. Still creative process. So he now talks about how some of the top talents that propelled DC Comics and Marvel Comics in the teens, we're talking about people with basically 10, 20 years of experience, have moved on to create their own titles, digital first books, or opportunities elsewhere in the entertainment industries. And their replacements have not quite hit their stride. So they talk about, so people want to move on to less selling independent books that make more money, and basically that affords them more control and more back-end opportunities. So in a way, that's kind of a criticism of how Marvel and DC have been handling rewarding the creators when it comes to all the transmedia stuff, doesn't it?
Right. Well, some of this stuff is true. It's just being put together in the wrong order. I mean, of course, creators don't want to make characters that they're not reimbursed for transmedia corporate giants. But at the same time, a lot of old talent just isn't being hired anymore because it's cheaper to hire somebody off a Tumblr. Or what if you are actually, and I hate to say this, American comic book publishers have all but admitted to this, that they're actually trying to hire people that hit the check boxes that they're trying to pander to. Now, when you do that, you're looking past any type of meritocracy or any type of skill set that maybe will quite simply just sell a comic book. What if people don't buy a comic book because of the person's color of their skin or their sexuality? Because the person's really not there. The paper material that's stapled and folded, that's on the shelf, and the character that's there, that's what people are buying. The actual physical book. And comic sales are down. Like, look, at least everybody's waking up to this, and this guy's not trying to take credit for manga sales and YA sales in this. But I mean, we're at a point. Can some of this be undone? And it really would take getting back to basics, putting creators to work that people actually want to buy, not creators that happen to have the right price point and can be exploited, I don't know, to sell to whoever. Obviously, not a lot. There's some points in this article I do think are valid, but in general, like, you
Well,
have
they're
to
not addressing the
understand.
issue. Like, okay, let's look at this point over here. He's talking now about editors with a trained eye to spot potential breakout hits and talent. And they're basically saying, these people are leaving the companies. So now DC and Marvel have to employ this conservative, protect the brand mentality. Oh, I'm sorry. Have you been reading the same books as us? It's like, didn't we just basically do a video about a threesome that was soon to become a foursome in the Harley Quinn comic book? And then Tim Drake, hello, I've been following the book since Chuck Dixon started working on Robin #1. And it's like, I'm sorry, I never saw hints of him being bisexual. He has male friends and female friends. He definitely has a lot of the girls going after him. And suddenly it's like, oh, by the way, Tim is bisexual. And he has this thing for this old schoolmate. Okay, sure. Thanks, I guess. Maybe that is really conservative and protecting the brand of Robin.
And some of this is looking for new fans, looking for trending hashtags. I really hate to say that. That's the type of publishing that's happening right now, is trying to
So
invade
conservative.
hashtags. Again, I think this is a bad take. I would say, like, the people who are in charge are not worried about character and story. And those things are the last thing that's on the chalkboard. Like, they're like number 2 and 3, if that. They're probably further down the list, like 5 and 6. Yeah, all the priorities of American comic book publishing right now. Yes, it's superheroes, but it's also superheroes identities, like as far as pronouns go, their sexual identities. Do they want to be bisexual? It's very perverse right now, and not in like an entertaining way, not like
I'm
something like a
sorry. Are we talking
boy.
about superhero books? We're talking about guys doing hero antics and saving the day, right? So why do I care who does he bang in bed? Like, why
Well,
do I
I
care?
mean, that's the thing. It's not about the character's powers. It's not about their sense of responsibility. It's not about adventures. It's not about villains. It's not about anything that the genre was built to be about. Now, again, with all that said, I will still agree with this person that there is a superhero fatigue. I do think like right now, the American comic book industry is propped up by this one trick, and that is a superhero. And I do think there is a need for sci-fi books, for crime books, for Western books, for all kinds of different comics. Now, that's an advantage to manga, but not per se. They've never really been full on superhero to begin with. They have all these different genres and everything, sure, but it's always been very diverse as a medium.
Look, can you imagine
Again,
DC trying to get into romance and then they have to start catering to all the LGBTQIA people? Or if they try to get into sci-fi and they have to deal with actual science? Like,
right. That
things
would
like, oh, by the way, a man cannot become a woman. It's like, oh my God, that's blasphemy. But no, that's
as
science.
super problematic. But he does leave on a positive note, correct?
Yeah, he kind of sort of positive. He says it's just another passing squall, talking about how there are booms and busts, explosions, implosions, infinite crises and rebirths. All
And
right, so you use the things like he brings up example of Walking Dead, Saga, all that. Great, those are great, but I don't think there's never been a single book that came close to the popularity of any of these titles that could really make people say, "Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, I can't wait to go down to the comic book store this week."
in the end, like this is again the biggest disservice is just to sweep this information up under the rug and not learn from the problem and try to course correct. At this point in time, I think anybody working in comics in general should really take a moment and look at what went wrong the last, I don't know, 10 years and really evaluate that and build off of that rather than just say, it'll come and pass, because eventually it will pass, but it'll never come again. Because right now, the American comic book industry, as far as Marvel and DC Comics are concerned, are owned by mega corporations that maybe they don't really want to keep investing in comic books. They never really bought these comic companies to actually publish books. They actually bought these companies to own the characters. So do they actually need to keep continuing down this vicious cycle of failure with monthly comic book publishing? I don't know, but I do know Inglorious Rex is like a few backers away from $220,000. You could be one of those lucky backers that push us over the top. We do have an exclusive cover on our website, an anatomic cover. If you guys will, please go check that out. And we will catch you guys with another video. I'll leave you guys with a trailer for this smash hit book, Inglorious Rex.
Please excuse me, your honor, but you can't hold me no longer. Can't you feel the vibrations? I broke out and left traces. Go ahead, try catch me if you can, man. You'll be looking all night, I'm the Sandman. New York, London to Japan. I'ma show the whole world who I am. Boom, boom, boom. Major look, huh? Yeah, this one is for the books. All these chances